agriculture is the most heartful, most helpful, and most noble employment of man, George Washington. Even 250 years ago, George Washington knew the importance of agriculture to the American economy. The prosperity of our nation depended greatly upon the agriculture industry. S.M. Goldmark and Richard Grant stressed the importance of agriculture in their article, "Farm Subsidies Are Needed for American Farmers," stating, "Everyone needs it to stay alive. Agriculture is critical to the survival of our country." When ag was threatened during the Great Depression and Dust Bowl of the 1930s, the federal government began programs to help farmers recover from this great loss. Many of these protection and relief programs are still in place today and is a source of major issue in Washington. Strong debates surrounding federal funding of agriculture, and many researchers, policymakers, and writers present the argument for and against agricultural subsidies. Subsidies started in the 1930s and have become an integral part of the agriculture industry. Many factions argue over the necessity and if these programs shall continue to the means that they do. Understanding what the federal government labels as a subsidy is important to grasp on the whole situation. In his article, Explaining Farm Subsidy Problem, Scott Lincecum provides that government protects the farmer from price, revenue, yield fluctuations, payment for conservation efforts, insurance, marketing, export sales, research, and other activities. This shows a large umbrella that the federal government covers the American farmer. To understand deeper what a subsidy is, let's address where they came from and their origin. When the Great Depression and Dust Bowl ravaged the American economy, farmers were harmed greatly by the failing economy and drought in the Midwest. Profiting and even breaking even became hard and potentially ruptured the American farming industry. Lincecum states farm programs were adopted in part as a response to poverty of the U.S. farm population, which was 25% of the U.S. farm population in 1930. Responding, FDR created the New Deal, which was his famous New Deal, which contained programs and subsidies to support wheat, rice, and corn farmers specifically, and to provide food for millions of Americans struggling to put food on the table in this trying time. Many of these programs that FDR enacted have become staples in American agriculture. According to Lincecum, from 1995 to Q2 in 2020, the federal government has spent $424.4 billion in ag subsidies, excluding SNAP nutrition and school lunch programs, which is a large sum as well, showing attention that Washington gives to the American agriculture industry. Now that you have a general understanding of ag subsidies, let's take a look at the arguments supporting ag subsidies. No matter the situation, every human needs to eat. With an ever-increasing population internationally, demand will continue to rise with each coming year. Food is a non-negotiable commodity, and the U.S. government understands this issue. By subsidizing domestic product, we are keeping prices down in the American economy, limiting reliance on imported goods, and maintaining a self-sufficiency model. Vincent Smith and John Hewlett highlight in Farm Policy and Disaster Aid Programs, The Path Looking Forward, the amount of money that farmers are shelled each year. $23 billion in expected annual Farm Bill overlays on farm subsidy, conservation, research, development, and other programs. Money allows many programs to operate, which again is separate from SNAP nutrition and school lunch assisted programs. Although not faced with mass starvation, our government continues its federal programs for many reasons. The most important reason and the first reason is keeping prices low domestically. The second reason is ending our reliance upon foreign petroleum. As our country continues for a cleaner energy source, we must find an alternate to power our world. Ethanol, a fuel made from corn, is a supposed effective way to achieve energy independence. The final reason presented by Goldmark and Grant is that it is difficult to compete on a world market. Countries abroad run American farmers out of business by subsidizing their workers at artificially low prices, leaving us to depend on other countries. Jerry Hagstrom then opens his article mentioning organizations that oppose John McCain in his ending of ethanol and farm subsidies. Many commodity groups, like the National Farmers Union and American Farm Bureau Federation, denounced John McCain, saying, "McCain opposes interest in rural America, and federal farm and crop insurance serve as a safety net for families." Each provides valid points in their argument, mentioning the suffering of rural America as well as protecting the American farmer. William Morris provides Beth Ford's stand that is, "This is not a rural issue of somebody else's problem. We need to remind ourselves that there is a shared destiny between urban and rural America." American ag needs support for effective industry and to provide high quality, low cost food. Now that we understand the POV of those supporting agricultural subsidies, let's take a look against. Although originally intended to raise farmers out of poverty and to maintain a low food price, subsidies have morphed into a government windfall for those who grow corn, wheat, soybeans, rice, and cotton. Corn specifically, Lincecum mentions that corn is so overproduced in our country that the government had to create an entire industry to support it, pushing out a subsidy goldmine in ethanol, additionally subsidizing high fructose corn syrup to make unhealthy foods in our children and for all of us to eat. How can an industry attack such an interconnected issue? Well, the answer is you can't tackle it on full blow. Most of us spend 4 to 5 hours a day on our phones, and if I were to say, hey, give me your phone, you can't use it forever, most of us wouldn't be able to adjust right now. John Friedland is attempting to push this point across, mentioning the major dependence across the board between many different industries. When the farmer prospers, so does the local feed store, car and truck dealer, tractor salesman, and Kmart manager. With many different industries connected, the federal government needs to wean our farmers off of their subsidy high. Lincecum mentions subsidies, mentions bad reasons for the subsidies: harming poor countries, trade conflict with other countries, spending problems, and economic distortions. If we can take the massive amounts of money circulating in this industry, we can attack other issues within our federal government. The New Deal for sure rescued many from going under and losing their land during the Great Depression and Dust Bowl. But Friedland mentions that these farm programs are now a pitfall of our American economy, mentioning 65% of all federal farm payments go to the top 16% of farmers in our nation. The ag subsidy industry is no longer about recovering, but about how much money flows through the programs. Although publicized as a safety net for American farmers, subsidies have propelled into record profits for many American farmers. The various programs enacted in the 1930s are now a part of the American agriculture industry. Whether the agriculture industry shall continue to be funded to its current means is up for debate. In the current state of ag subsidies and the ever-increasing flow of money to larger farms, farm subsidies continue to be a controversial topic in America. Thank you for listening to my speech, and I hope you have a good opinion on what I talked about.